Now, in the last lecture, we faced one of the issue related to synchronization, where we need to implement something called as implicit wait, right, to handle the password element. Now, after we enter password, after I enter some password, I need to click on next button. So I'll again be inspecting this next button element. I'll copy the X path. I'll say copy X path. And after entering password, I'll say driver dot find element by dot XPath this dot click, right? So after clicking on the next button, if I click on the next button, if the password is incorrect, we may get a message over here that wrong password, try again. So what I'll do, I'll try inspecting this element, and I want to get the text out of this element. So in order to get the text, you can simply copy XPath for this element. For everything, you'll get XPath, right? XPath and CSS are two locators which will work fine for all the elements. Right now, we have started with XPath. So first, we'll get comfortable with XPath. Then we'll be working on CSS as well in depth, right? So both are very frequently used. There are some people who prefer working only and only on CSS, right? And there are some people who are habitual of using XPath, right? But we need to learn both the locators. We should be doing mastery in XPath and CSS, because in interviews, the question could come from any of these locators. And what is the difference in XPath and CSS? We'll have a detailed discussion in the next section, where I have discussed about XPath versus CSS locators. All right. So let's try getting the text. How to get the text? First, find the element by XPath this, then say dot get text. So Selenium will going to get the text. In order to print it, we need to put it inside system.out.println. Right, like for getting title, we use get title. For getting text, we'll be using get text. So let's run this and let's see if we get the text out of this element. Okay, give me a moment. See, implicit wait actually waited. So that's the reason it worked. And see, it has printed the text out of this element. Right, so let's run this once more. And if you look over here, the text is printed. Now, same thing, I want to make sure it works fine with Firefox as well, right? We have tried this on Chrome, and I want to see whether like XPath, which are working fine on Chrome, are working fine on Firefox or not, right? So let's make sure about this thing as well, because locator always remains the same, because locators are built up from the HTML elements only, and HTML elements remain same on all the browser. So 99% of the time you'll find that there is no change in the locator if you are switching the browsers, right? But still, we want to make sure the script that we have written should work absolutely fine on both the browsers. Let's see. Okay. So see, it didn't enter the password over here. Now why? What could be the reason? Let's see. See, this time we got a different exception. Element not interactable exception. Element is not reachable by this keyword. So what sort of exception is this? If I try to give thread.sleep again, and let's see if it works or not. So even the thread.sleep is not working. Oh, it worked. See, thread.sleep worked. Okay, we have given 10 seconds sleep time, right? So it actually waited for 10 seconds and then it worked. And now if we look over here, everything works successfully fine, right? There are no failures. Don't go, don't worry about this. This is just a message, but things are working fine. It actually worked till end, printed this message. But we are able to handle it using thread.sleep, but why we are not able to handle it using implicit wait? Why the implicit wait is not waiting? If I don't use this thread.sleep, we have already defined implicit wait. It should work fine with implicit wait as well. See, it didn't work. And we should have got the same exception. Element not interactable. Right? See, why it is not interactable? It may happen the execution is very fast. Right? As soon as it clicks on it, maybe it is happening, the element may be taking some time to become visible, but the HTML syntax is already, the HTML is already there in this DOM. The element is taking little bit time, right, to become visible, but the element is already added to our DOM, to the HTML DOM. Means there is no presence issue. There could be a visibility issue. Right? It is taking a little while for the element to become visible. Right? See, for visibility, the precondition is that the element should be there in the DOM. For presence, the element is not there, it is like added later on. See, I know this is a bit tricky part over here. See, at times what happens, let's say this is my HTML. And inside this HTML, I have couple of input elements. This is, let's say, username. Then I have an input element, password. Then I have a button element, right? And then the HTML ends. Let's say this is the HTML. This password is after the button element, right? So at times it happens that one of the property of this element is hidden equal to true. Something like this. So even if it is hidden is equal to true, this is present inside HTML. If you use, let's say, if this is the HTML code of the Gmail application that we are automating, now what happened that when we try to find the element password, when we say driver.find element password, it will not going to work with this element. But it will not throw no such element exception. We may encounter some exception like no such element visible exception. Or the way we got no element interactable, something like that. We got one of the exception related to interactable. Element not interactable exception. Right? Means element is present on the page, but it is not interactable. Right? In order to interact with this element, you need to wait a little while. Right? So this is another expected condition. But for these conditions, element should be present inside your DOM. So this is not a presence condition. And if we talk about implicit wait, if you remember, I have highlighted this thing. So implicit wait only works with the presence of an element. And there could be n number of other conditions where synchronizations are involved. Right? So for this interactable, it could happen that the element is not visible immediately. Element might get added, but it is not visible. There could be any scenario. So apart from presence, if you want to handle anything else, then you will not be using implicit wait. In that case, you should be using something called as explicit wait. Now, what is explicit wait? How are we going to implement explicit wait? Explicit wait, there are a number of conditions through which actually explicit wait it satisfy. Not just presence, although presence is also one of the condition is in explicit wait. At times, it may happen that you have 4 elements where you have provided this implicit wait. I mean, throughout the script, implicit wait will be applied. And the wait that is applied is for 10 seconds. But maybe for this third element, I want it to wait more than 10 seconds. Because all the elements should show up in 10 seconds, but this element may going to take 20 seconds to show up. So for this particular element, should I change the entire timeout to 20 seconds? Then it may happen that this element may going to take 15 seconds, but I want to report a failure if it takes more than 10 seconds. But for this, I want to wait maximum for 20 seconds. So for rest of the script, I can define the timeout as 10 seconds. Just for this particular element, I can specifically define the timeout as 20 seconds. So if in case you want to specify a timeout for a particular element or a particular condition, then you will be using explicit wait. Right? And how explicit wait is implemented? In order to use explicit wait, there is a class that is called as WebDriver wait. So you need to create an object of this class in order to work with explicit waits. So how? Just simply say WebDriver wait equal to new WebDriver wait. That's it. And import it through Selenium. So once you import it, there is a constructor that accepts your driver reference. So this is what driver you need to pass over here, and the amount of time you want to wait. Let's say I want to wait 20 seconds. Whichever is higher, that will be applicable. Right, so if you give 20 seconds for a particular element, it will gonna wait for 20 seconds. So if in case you want to give 5 seconds, it will wait for 5 seconds. Maybe if you don't want to, at times it happens, some people don't prefer giving implicit wait. Why? Because implicit wait, in order to find elements on the, maybe there is no wait required for these elements. Why to provide implicit wait? Implicit wait tries to hit the element n number of times in order to find that element. So you unnecessarily don't want to make your script heavy, right? You don't want to use wait with all the elements. So you can comment out the implicit wait part as well. And whichever element, a particular element, you want the wait should be applied. Let's say I want to apply wait for the very first element, where I'm typing the username. Right, and here the condition could be presence only, right? So with implicit as well, the condition was presence. With explicit as well, for this element, I can make a condition as presence. How? I'll comment out this driver.find element, and I'll achieve with something called as wait.until. Wait.until the condition is true. Which condition? You'll be achieving it with the help of expected conditions. Dot, and these are all the conditions that you can wait for. Till the time alert is not present. Now what is alert? We're going to look at it in our upcoming lectures. Till the time element selection state or element is clickable, or till the time total number of elements are less than or more than a particular number, or presence of element. See, presence of element located by as in same by xpath. Right, this is a little bit complex, but just try to understand it. Wait dot until expected condition presence of element located by dot XPath. This will also return you a web element. So you can directly put a dot over here, say send keys, and enter your mail ID, trainer@waitautomation.com. Now, this will work the same way like we do driver.find element. But now implicit wait is not there. So only the wait will be applied for this element. For rest of the element, wait will not be applied. And here the wait is applied for the presence. Now if I go down, wait is not required for this click element, right? For the next button, wait is not required. If we look over here, for this button, wait is not required. So I can directly click on it. Wait is required for this element now. Maybe the visibility issue was there, right? Because we didn't get no such element exception. We got element not interactable for this particular element. So I'll comment out this part and I'll simply say wait dot until expected conditions dot visibility of element located by, and I'll say by dot name. This dot send keys and enter the password. That's it. So see, two different conditions. This is the visibility condition and this is the presence condition. And if I save this and run this again, see, it works absolutely fine, right? And if you see over here, the entire script got executed. And same thing, let's change it for Chrome as well. And over here, Chrome driver. Let's make sure this is working fine on both the browsers. See, no need for hard-coded wait. It works absolutely fine. Oh, it errored out over here. Why the error is there? Let's see. No such element, unable to locate element XPath, this one, which is this element. I believe this is the element. See, it is not able to get the text of this element now. Another issue. See, this is Gmail. It's a dynamic application. The code that I'm writing right now, it may happen that after a month, this code might not work. So you need to add some additional strategies to it, right? See, few seconds back when we were executing it, it was working fine. But now it is not locating this password element. And see why? Maybe there is a wait required for this password element as well. Right? So you remember now this could be related to presence of element. So for presence of element, if I enable this implicit wait, it will gonna work. Or else, if in case you want to use expected condition, then give this condition. Presence of element located by this. So if you go down over here, just remove this and give wait dot until presence, just a moment, wait dot until presence of element located by, so I'll remove this part, located by dot XPath, this dot get text. Right? So this dot get text is throwing some error. Give me a moment. This by dot XPath dot get text, right? So you can achieve this using explicit weight as well, or you can achieve this using implicit weight as well. So see, just presence condition, you can handle it using implicit weight. But for all other conditions, you need to use explicit weight. Now it should work fine. Now this thing should work fine on both the browsers, on Chrome as well as on Firefox. But yes, you can avoid using explicit weight if in case you find the code is a little bit tricky over here, then just implement implicit weight once. And for these two elements, it should work fine. But for this element where the visibility condition was there, you need to use explicit weight only, right? So this is what your explicit weights are, right? So just try practicing around explicit weight and implicit weight a lot, because you're going to face a lot of synchronization issue, and there is no documentation on how to handle the synchronization. You're only going to see the exception, no such element present exception or visibility exception or n number of other exceptions are there. But there is no documentation which will help you in troubleshooting. It's only and only your practice that will help you in troubleshooting these things. The more you troubleshoot, the more you get confident while automating or handling these elements, right? So in the next lecture, we'll be studying about fluent weight, and then we'll be using these weights a lot while doing other examples as well. All right, thank you.